Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. So myself and Rajiv worked in a project where we both worked in a module to integrate our authentication module, basically to replace our existing authentication module and integrate our application with Auth0. So we are here to share our experiences and learnings during this journey. So without any further delay, let's move on to the session. Yeah. So to give a quick background about what is all about our application or project about. So it's a financial institution application. It's a mobile application which is there in both iOS and Android. So the architecture at the time when we joined is like it's a very big legacy monolith application. So our roadmap looked like modernizing the existing monolith application. So we worked on modernizing this monolith, and that is when we broke down our monolith into microservices. So as part of this journey, authentication module also came out as one more independent module. So the journey was so cool, and we were able to move to production, and we haven't seen any production issues even after migrating to microservice. So that was so smooth of migrating monolith to, or splitting the monolith to microservices. So later, we started, like, irrespective of whether the architecture is monolith or microservices, right? The organization or the users started growing exponentially, like from number of thousands to millions of users during the pandemic. So that is when we started noticing like this is a public facing domain, and it has become more visible to the users. And slowly we started noticing lot of attacks. Like attacks in the sense user enumeration attacks, timing attacks, and bot attacks, and several other issues we have seen in terms of security. So that is when we felt like the custom auth application, which is serving all the basic functionalities of authentication, it's not enough as is what it is doing today, right? It requires much more protection. So that is when we came with a roadmap of what needs to be done to the existing application. So as you can see here, the left hand side is the custom auth, what all features that our authentication service is providing. It serves all the bare minimum features like login, logout, password resets, multi-factor authentication, 2 different types of OTP, TOTP, and everything. And also we have first class monitoring also, like logging, monitoring, rate limiting, alert management, everything is there in place. But if you see the right hand side, to add more protection, we also wanted to incorporate brute force protection, bot detection, and several other additional authentications, like different types of MFAs, and also integrate third-party applications using SSO, and third-party firm applications again with SSO. So the roadmap actually looked very complex. But this is again achievable in the custom auth. We can definitely implement all these features in custom auth, right? So that is when we just did a very small analysis, like, sorry, did someone have a question? Okay, so once we looked at the roadmap, we did a very small analysis, like how much time or effort or price will it take to implement all these features in our custom application, right? So we did a comparative analysis between the custom auth and any third-party application. As you can see here, all the blue lines represent the efforts or the the cost that will be involved in terms of effort and price, whereas the red is, for example, Auth0 here. We did a comparative analysis across the time. How can we implement all these features given the same team? So that is when we realized, like, as it is evident from the graph also, it is better to go with a third party application, which is a readily available solution in the industry. That is when we looked at a couple of potential alternatives which are widely used and accepted across many famous applications. Out of this, we have handpicked these 5 solutions: Auth0, Keycloak, Ori, Amazon Cognito, and Firebase. So we did a high level analysis and compare, like, with respect to whatever roadmap we have and whatever requirements we have in hand. So considering the requirements and feasibility in terms of the infrastructure cost and various other several factors, we have narrowed down our analysis to Auth0 and Keycloak. So now we have to So now we have 2 solutions in hand: Auth0, which is a SaaS-based product, whereas Keycloak, that is an open source product, right? Open source solution. So we took 2 different flavors of solution, and we did a very deeper comparative analysis between Auth0 and Keycloak. Right. So we have considered a lot of factors like tenant support, user federation, social login, authentication, authorization flows, and the email templates providers, admin flows, and all that. We have considered each and every step while each and every feature while doing the comparison. Out of which these features have stood out like key differentiating factors to decide, or to finalize which would be our best solution to fit our requirement. For example, MFA, right? Multi-factor authentication, we have a very specific requirement, like it has to support OTP, TOTP, and in future it should also support biometric, touch ID, face ID. And we should also migrate all the existing configurations from legacy or custom system to Auth0, and also migrate the recovery codes. So these are very specific requirements with respect to MFA. And coming to monitoring with Datadog, right? So our current application is also integrated with Datadog. So we wanted to extend, we want to keep supporting or use Datadog even after migrating to Auth0. That is when we realized, like, Auth0 comes up with a very first class support with Datadog implementation, where it's just one click away. You just need to add the key of the Datadog and just configure in the dashboard, and it's all done. So it comes up with all the dashboards, logging mechanism, whatever logs or stream that comes up in Auth0, all the activities that happens in Auth0 get streamed into Datadog, and it comes up with all the required dashboards as well. No additional effort is actually required when you integrate with Datadog. Same is the case with when we have to integrate with third-party extensions or third-party integrations, right? For example, we have used Amazon SES, and we have used Twilio to send the OTP, and send SES for sending the emails. So all these have become very easy. Like, during the analysis itself, we realized, like, it's just a configuration with respect to Auth0, whereas all these features stood out a bit, additional effort. When we take Keycloak, Keycloak is also like provides all the support for all these features. It is achievable, whereas with Keycloak, we should go with some additional maintenance, infrastructure, additional coding, and manage the versioning. We have to take care of a lot of other stuff if we have to go with an open source solution, whereas Auth0 comes with its own infrastructure and configurable dashboard, which makes user management or session management, token management, everything readily available and easy to use. Same is the case with multi-region deployment as well. Auth0 supports multi-region deployment just by adding one tenant in the dashboard. When we add one more tenant in the dashboard, it just supports another deployment in a different region. For example, our application was currently deployed in US. We wanted to extend it to Europe. So it's just one click away by adding another tenant. When it comes to security controls as well, like the bot detection or, IP throttling, all these were supported by Keycloak as well. But again, it's just a toggle in Auth0. It will be maintenance free basically when we go with Auth0. And last but not the least, support. We have a first class enterprise support with Auth0. With Keycloak also we have with some versions, some enterprise versions, but with Auth0 it is like since the client is ready, ready to go with a SaaS solution, we have got first class support from enterprise as well. So these are the key factors that made us choose Auth0. Over to Rajiv. Any questions so far? Sorry, let me check the chat. Okay, thanks, Samir, for answering the questions. Let me stop. Over to you, Rajiv.
All right, I'll share my screen. Okay, let's discuss the features of Auth0. So first one is the authentication. So Auth0 provide you many ways to authenticate user to an application. So in the database, okay. So one is the database. So when Auth0 provide basically user can store the credentials into the database, whether it's the Auth0 managed database or your own database. So user when user signs up, they get stored in the database and user login against them. The other one is the social login, where user can use their social account, for example, Twitter, GitHub, or Facebook, Amazon. There are many more social accounts supported by Auth0. So user can use them and log in into the application using those accounts. And the enterprise connection. So basically, a user can use their enterprise products like SAML or Active Directory or the Google Workspace. So they can use it and log in into the application. And at the end, this is the passwordless, where a user can use a passwordless connection. So it means Auth0 supports like SMS based and the email based login, where let's say when they use SMS based, when they try to log in, they will provide their phone number and an SMS will be sent with the OTP, and then user can use that OTP and log in into the application. So these are the whole mechanism, the way user can log in into application using Auth0. The second one is the branding. So let's take an example that we are building an Amazon application and we are integrating it with Auth0 for login. So when login, authentication has different flow. For example, user register with the application, user can log in, user reset their password. All of them have a screen. Let's say even user logs in. So Auth0 provide you mechanism where you can basically customize those screens, whether it is the MFA screen, like multi-factor authentication, or the login screen or the registration screens. Second one is, let's say user register on the application, they will be sent an email to their email ID, and just to verify whether that email ID belongs to the user or not. So that email will have the branding of the, it should be application branded, not the Auth0 branded. So let's say we are taking the Amazon, and if user register using the Auth0, they will receive an email with Auth0 brands, where it will have a sender Auth0, and they will have styling of Auth0, logo of Auth0. People wouldn't trust it, and they will not click on the link and basically activate the account. So Auth0 provide a mechanism where user can basically customize their email templates. They can customize the providers, where the provider can be something like Amazon.com, no reply at the rate Amazon.com, or something of this sort. And when user logs in, then the domain should be like something like login.amazon.com. If the domain is something like amazon.auth0.com, people might not be comfortable sharing their credentials with Auth0. So these are the all customization that Auth0 supports, and so that the whole experience looks seamless. A user doesn't feel that they are going to the products. Then we have the monitoring, where so every actions, every configurations that are changed on the Auth0 dashboard, or user logs into your application, they succeeded or they fail. All of these events are tracked and logged into the Auth0. So this is like you can go into the dashboard and see what's happening in your system. And the other one is streaming. You can use those logs and stream them to your logging tool, for example, Datadog, Splunk, and that's where you can write your dashboards over it. Or you can write, or there are many integrations, and you can write your custom webhooks as well. And the next one is the security. So Auth0 protects against a different attack. For example, the bot protection. So they have a huge data and statistical model that can identify whether traffic is being generated from a bot, or is it the legitimate user who is generating the traffic. And based on that, they can block the user. Similarly, the IP throttling. Let's say if an IP is generating too much traffic for different users, so they can see, they can identify it and block basically that IP address. Similarly, the brute force attack, where they see that a single user is being targeted for different password, and every time, let's say, it fails, so they will block that user from that IP address. And it is also possible to block that user from all the IP addresses. It is configurable. So, and the other one is the breach password protection. So when any third party gets compromised, and the credentials are leaked in the public, then Auth0 basically get the informations, and whenever someone tries to use those credentials, then it highlights them. And there are many ways. It can send the SMS, or it can block the users. So that's the attack protection that Auth0 provides. Then we have the multi-factor authentications. Multi-factor is where a user use more than one credentials to authenticate with the application. So it supports, it has support for a wide variety of multi-factors. Like one is when you use your username and password. Then second factor is like SMS. It can be email. It can be TOTP based. It can be Duo, Web Authn, and there are like Guardian, and a lot of other factors are supported as part of the MFA. All right, let's move to next screen. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at authentication system, then we will see that there are different user flows. For example, user logs in, register, they reset their password. So all of these flow are extensible in Auth0. So whenever
Rajiv,
yeah.
if you have changed the slide, we don't see it.
Oh, you didn't?
No, we see Auth0 features.
Okay. So this is like, can you see that actions, rules, and hooks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then okay. So we were talking about the action. So user has different flows in their authentication journey. So Auth0 provides a mechanism where we can plug our custom code basically into those flows. Let's say when a user logs in and you want to perform certain actions. Let's say you want to disable a user that hasn't verified their email ID. So we can block those users from login. Or you want let's say you want to enforce that all the users with admin role, they must provide a second factor authentication. So you can also configure it during the login. Similarly, like if you want to extend register flow, let's say when user register your application, you want to perform certain actions, then you can go and write your own code. After there is then when your code execute, and finally when your code is successful, then it mark the user as the registered. So actions, rule, and hooks are for that. So actions are the new thing that they are introducing. Rules and hooks are the deprecated ones. They don't recommend now. Then we have applications and the user management. So like when your application integrate with Auth0, then we create an applications or a client inside the Auth0. So you can define that what is the application type, and based on that, what are the different auth flow that you want to allow. For example, you want to allow MFAs, you want to allow the code grant flow, and you can configure your expiry time of token, ID token, access token, and everything. And similarly, it provides like a admin view for all the users, where an admin can go. I mean, a user can go and admin user definitely Auth0, and they can go and let's say block user, unblock the user, change their email ID, password reset, or reset their MFAs. Finally, the CI/CD support. So when let's say we have configured our dev environment, now we have to move them to queue environment, and from queue to production. We have a lot of configuration that we have done. So it's very easy to miss some of the features when we migrate from one environment to the other environment. So Auth0 provide us a utility where we can move the configurations from dev environment to the queue environment. And anything that is specific to environment, let's say in Q environment, you use different URL. In Dev, you use different URL. Those are configurable. So that tool, you can provide those configuration to it will take those configuration, move to different environments. It's very easy. There are other features like it helps you operationally, like JWT signing in and rotation of the key. So the key that is used to sign your JWTs, they are automatically rotated time to time, or they give you functionality to do it manually as well. And like they also manage the, I mean, you can manage your login session. How long do you want a user to be signed in? So that's all we had from feature. Let's move to the demo. We will briefly go through these features. So when you register with your application, it will ask you to create a tenant. So let's create a tenant, and we say that. So here we can see that this is the reason. Like we had the requirement where we had to keep users data in EU region only, and for US region we had to keep for US people we had to keep the data in US region. So you can create your tenant based on your requirement, whether you want it in EU, Australia, or anywhere. Similarly, you can tag your environment. So you are going to use this tenant for this environment. And environment, depending on environment, your rate limits and your performance may vary. So let's create it. Now let's register our application, that the application that we are going to integrate with Auth0. And let's create the application. This is the demo app, and let's use the single page application. And then create it. And let's go to the settings, and let me start. So we need to configure our application to use this tenant and this application basically. This is the sample application that I downloaded from their website, and I'm just running it in local. Okay. You are able to see my screen, right?
Yes, Raj.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll configure the URLs, like allowed fallback URLs, allowed logout URLs, and allowed web origins. There are a lot of configuration that you can change, and you can go through in your free time, like device controls. You can use what are the different grant types that you want to configure. Then let's save it, and once we have done it, let's start. We started the application. Now, when we log into the application, then let's sign up as a new user. Then this is the disposable email that I'm using for now. And now I'm signed. I have it registered me. I can log out. I mean, and then basically again log in, just to show you that now it has been registered. Okay. And now if you go to the user management on the portal, and here you can see that this user is created. And Okay, and we can see other details as well. And there are many things that we can do, like change email, change password, block, unblock, delete, and self verification email. Then let's turn on the MFA for this user. So we will enforce all the users that they have to use, at least apart from your user credentials, they have to use some other mechanism for the uh, authentication apart from so for now let's consider one-time password. So this is TOTP based multi-factor authentication, and let me mark that this is the mandatory. We have to ask every user to basically provide MFA when they logs in. So let's log out, and when I logs in again, it will enforce me to provide to basically set up MFA because I didn't set up earlier. Okay, so you can see that I can basically log in here now. So that's how, like, it's very easy. You can turn on multi-factor authentications and make it mandatory for all the users. It also support like adaptive MFA, where it analyze the user profile and see if that's the risky user. I mean, it has their own algorithm internally, and then only they ask for the MFA. Otherwise, they don't ask for the MFA. Then let's look at one of the attack protection first. Then let's look at the brute force. It's already enabled, and by default, it will block the user after 10 wrong attempt with the password. Let's say you want to block user after let's say 3 attempt. So if they make 3 attempt, then let's block the user from that IP address. And now when I logs out and log in again, okay, and now I provide wrong password. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now it has blocked me. It wouldn't allow me to basically log in. But if you go to like users, and I can see that this user is in blocked state due to brute force. Okay, so we can see that this user is blocked, and we can also see we will unblock it for all IP. So I can see that my IP. So I am blocked from this IP address, but if I try from other IP address, it will work. So it's like if I'm attacker, only my IP address will be blocked. An illegitimate user, they can always go on and log in. Okay, so now I unblock the user. Now let's look at extending the flow. When user logs in, let's extend that flow. Let's block this user from login for now. So this text act as the basically reason why we are denying the access, and we can basically deploy it. And this code snippet can be used in different flow. Let's say user reset and a password reset and something. Now we have to attach this flow with our login flow. We applied. Then now when I try to log in, so let me refresh and see that it works. Okay, see that now when I provided correct password, then it blocked me for the so what I have done is I have extended their login flow, and block this user. So this example for now, it doesn't make sense in production environment. No one is going to define their IP address and block the users. But you can define rules something like this, that if a user has admin role, it is mandatory to provide them MFA. So what we write is, if a user has this role, enforce the MFA. Similarly, you can do something like, if like we had done it in our project, that if users hasn't verified their email address, then don't allow them to log in. So you can extend their flow like this. And at a high level, like you can see, like if you look at the monitoring, that's where you can see your logs, that this is the failed login attempt and failed with the wrong password. And these are the different actions that you perform. And then you can attach your streams here. So you can go ahead and connect with all of these systems. And if like with custom webhook, so if you need to consume those events for some reason, you can basically go ahead and do it. So that's all I had from demo. And now let's go back and see, look at this. All right, now look at the customizations and the integrations that we had done for our project. So this sign up flow. So when we had done the POCs, we realized that we didn't find anything in Auth0 that can prevent us from user enumeration attack. So this is the attack, like when user logs, like sign in or log in, if your application says that this, let's say you try to register for an application and your application says this user is already exist. Let's say, or this email ID already exists in your system. Now attacker knows that this user is already there. Now they know their email ID. Now they need their password to attack the system. So this way attacker can know what are the all users registered on an application, and then they can attack for their password. So this is the like enumeration attack. So we couldn't find anything. So they have a support for user enumeration, but that wasn't sufficient for us during the registration. So in other API codes, they give very generic message to avoid it. But for sign up, it wasn't sufficient for us. So we had to orchestrate this registration flow through management API. Then we had the login flow. So one customization was if a user hasn't verified their email ID, we wouldn't let them log into the system. The other one was, so we had let me give some context, that we were storing a user's phone number into the system, so that whenever they do any transactions, we just give them information, or when we want to give let's say we have some campaign and we want to send them message, or we want to alert them of something, so we use that phone number for user notifications. So our requirement was we had to capture phone number when user basically from the MFA. When user basically logs in, then we enforce the MFA. And when user logs in first time, then we had to enforce SMS based MFA, even though in our system we had TOTP based and SMS based MFA. Both of them were configured from Auth0 side. So Auth0 will give us a list that which one do we want to configure, and user can configure any one of them. But what we wanted was, when user signs when login first time, we wouldn't have users phone number with us. So we enforced them to select SMS only. So we had done it through the customization, through the actions, that first time when they logs in, we enforce them to just show one MFA to set up, that is SMS based. And once they have set up their MFA, we will get their phone number, and afterward they can change their MFA to let's say TOTP based and TOTP to SMS based again. But we had to enforce them first time. So this is the customization that we did. Then we customize our email templates so that they match with our application branding, let's say the logo, typography, and the sender's email. And the custom domain, when we basically log in into the application, it should have domain of our application, maybe the subdomain of our application. Streaming is streaming was you. So whenever a user logs into our system, whether it is successful, it failed, or there were other events, we had like different microservices, those were consuming those events. Like one of them was fraud service that can identify if there are too many failure attempts or something. So there were many other microservices that were consuming those events. So what we had to do is we had to define the custom webhook, and we defined an endpoint at our side. So whenever there were any event, we could basically filter all the user-based event, let's say login, username, password. So that filtering capability is available in Auth0. So we filtered all the events that we were interested in, and we basically and Auth0 pushed those events to our microservices, and then we basically consumed them and send it to other microservices. So that was the customizations. Then we had the integration with the other tools. The first one, with the Amazon SES that we were using to send the SMS. It was very easy. We could go and provided the credentials, and it worked out of the box. Then we had customized our Twilio for sending the SMS for the MFA notifications. So it was also very easy. We just provided its keys and it worked. Then we had Datadog integrations. It's also very easy. You provide their key. It has also built-in dashboard. I mean, it can give you those dashboard, and you can see like login attempts, what are the failure and success already. So they have already predefined dashboard for it. And then we had that custom webhook that allowed us to have many events, and then based on passing those events to the Kafka event or processing them. So that's all I had. Vidya, over to you.
That was a very detailed demo. Hope that helps participants to connect between the theory and demo. Let me quickly share my screen. Yeah. Able to see my slide?
Yeah,
Yes.
Vidya.
Okay. This is, sorry, this opened up in another screen. Okay. So this is the interesting part, right? What are the challenges and learnings that we had across this journey? So the first challenge is the migration strategy. So when we move from our custom auth service to Auth0, right? All the user data, the identity information has to move from the existing system to Auth0. So yes, Auth0 provides two different types of migration strategies. One is lazy and other is bulk. So lazy in terms of, whenever the user makes an activity in the application, like like login or sign up or clicks on forget password. So at this time, the user data has to be migrated to Auth0. That is lazy migration. Whereas bulk is like we have to manually write some scripts and ensure that all the data which is there in our system can be moved to Auth0, like in chunks of data. Like in regular intervals of time with some specified size of data has to be moved. So both the approaches has pros and cons. So for our requirement, right, what we felt is what if we go with a hybrid approach, like initially go with lazy migration for some time, like, and observe for a couple of months, 1 or 2 months, and then go ahead with bulk migration. So all the active users who have been using the application, they'll be migrated using the lazy migration. So that is one of the strategy, one of the challenge. So for this also we have done deeper analysis, like how long we have to maintain our custom database, or what all data has to be migrated along with the username, email address, profile. We also have recovery codes, TOTP information, MFA information, like what is the current MFA that user is basically active on, right? What are all the other configured MFAs to this user? So a lot of data needs to be considered when we are actually deciding on the migration strategy. And sign up flow, as this is already spoken, right? Rajiv mentioned we have customized sign up flow. So during customization of sign up flow also, we have seen some hiccups, like with respect to email templates, configuring the email templates, and using the existing management APIs. For example, there is a concept in Auth0 called partial user. So when a user is migrated to Auth0, when he attempts the sign up, and he did not yet log in, okay, the user will be partially created in Auth0, which means the user is not active. We cannot go to dashboard and see this user information. So this is a partial user. This user will not have user ID in Auth0. So if there is no user ID, we cannot utilize the existing templates, email templates, to send an verification email to the user. So these are a couple of challenges where we had to again go with different routes to complete the sign up flow. These things I think better to be considered when you're doing the initial analysis. MFA is also spoken, as we said, like the specific requirement with MFA is we have to enforce phone number to be entered while during the first time login, because we wanted to use the phone number as an identity in future. Currently, email ID is the unique identifier for any user. Since we want a phone number also to be captured as a mandatory information, the requirement here is like it's okay to support any type of MFA like OTP or TOTP or Face ID in future also. But when the user is trying to log in for the first time, mandate the SMS based MFA to be the priority MFA, the strategy. So this is not actually readily available with Auth0. Here also we have to go with some customizations. We ended up writing some actions, and that is not easily evident from documentation also, like how to do it. We have to do like we ended up doing a lot of research on how to achieve this MFA strategy, mandating one specific type. So these are a couple of challenges. Moving on to learnings, yeah, we definitely want to share these with you folks, because whoever wants to integrate with Auth0, just keep these in mind. So the first learning we had is, POCs should verify all possible feasibilities. For example, as I mentioned, sign up flow, right? We assume like some of the APIs might work, or email templates might work for both, password reset, sign up, and reset password flows, but actually did not work out of the box just by configuration. And sometimes the documentation can also mislead, because we have seen in some APIs, like it says the documentation says the field is optional, but actually it becomes mandatory when you try it out. So we have tried almost all the feasible options, but again one or two flows were missed while doing the POCs. That is when it became a challenge when it came to the actual implementation phase. The second one is community versus enterprise support. Yes, we initially started with trial version, and we thought like everything is possible. We analyzed like what all is provided in trial version and what is not there in enterprise version. But still, when we are working on the trial version, we did not get much continuous and active support from community, because we are just like any other public, right, posting the questions. So when we go for an enterprise or professional support, right, we'll have a dedicated support or a person assigned to every user or every ticket, and we can continuously follow up on the same ticket. So that is one of the learnings. In between, we realized like, okay, this is not going to work for not only for the support. We actually extended our subscription to enterprise support for different other reasons, like custom domain is what we wanted to actually try it out, which is not supported in trial version. So after we moved to enterprise version, the support was so good, and we were getting very prompt responses immediately. So that is one learning. And yeah, security and infrastructure limitations. So when we are doing the analysis or POCs, just make sure to consider your infrastructure limitations. For example, we have SES keys, right? We used Amazon SES to send emails. So these SES key information is very, very confidential. So whichever way we used to store in the SOPs YAML in the custom application was did not work out when we moved to Auth0. There are a lot of security and infrastructure limitations that we couldn't continue in the same way. That also ended up as another challenge. So this is a learning, like, just make sure that you get approvals from your security team and infrastructure team, like what is possible when you're building your CI/CD pipeline using Auth0, what all you can expose, right? What all keys you can store. The next one is clear understanding of all available subscriptions. So Auth0 dashboard displays what all features are supported in trial version, professional, and enterprise version. It's very clear. So, but still, you have to keep asking questions like, even though it is marked as available, is it possible or not? Just go to reach out to support or community, ask specific questions like, can we do this or not? For example, custom domain is one of the challenge that we faced. So even after moving to enterprise version, we were able to create custom domain and we did a spike on that. But we faced issue with self-signed certificates. So with enterprise version, we cannot create self-signed certificates. Again, it comes up with Auth0 supported certificates. So that is another surprise. It came to us at a later point of time, but it's not a big issue. Like, we thought, like, once we move to higher environment, we would go with professional package and then try it out. But it's better to have very, very clear understanding of what each package is providing to you and how is it feasible to your requirements. So these are a couple of learnings from us. Any questions so far? That's all we actually have today with our Auth0 learnings.